when Garland ISD contacted us about this event being booked there. There were security concerns with them, and so from that we began to work with the school district officials, Garland officials, and police department officials to set up a security plan for this event. The security concerns that they had was because of the top event and the speaker that they were having and issues that had been with those folks before.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Glad you're with us at our new time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Lots to get to, and in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Katrina Pierson. She's a spokesperson for the Tea Party, a leader of Fun Pack, and a former Republican congressional candidate. She was at the Muhammad cartoon drawing event in Garland, Texas, where two terrorists, now we believe, the authorities believe, were influenced by ISIS, tried to get in and commit mass murder, but thankfully they were stopped by a heroic police officer. We're going to talk to her all about the event, what it was like inside, and in the next hour we're going to be joined by Robert Spencer, who was the actual, not organizer, but he was the sponsor of that event. He was there, and he will be in studio with us to talk about exactly what happened and how we move forward. Now, before we get to Katrina, a New York City police officer has been gunned down. He was shot in the head yesterday in Queens. Unfortunately, today, 25-year-old Brian Moore, a 5-year veteran of NYPD, succumbed to his injuries. He had been in a medically induced coma. He was shot in the face, and he has died. He was doing his job with his partner. They were in plain clothes, unmarked patrol car, and they saw a man on the street adjusting something in his waistband. So they pursued, and it turned out, as soon as they got to him, the thug, the alleged murderer, can you call an alleged murderer a thug? Or is that the N-word? I don't even know what color the guy is. He took out his gun and he shot Officer Moore in the face. You don't hear a lot about that today, do you? No. But let CNN find a Baltimore police officer with someone who violated the curfew, getting them on the ground and tying their hands behind their back. Ooh, 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 look, Don, look, they're arresting that man. Ooh, ooh. But a cop in New York City, another cop in New York City, is dead. And I don't hear anybody saying much about it. Not much at all. He was doing his job. But you see, doing his job entails confronting thugs, criminals, degenerates, murderers. And they never know until they secure the hands behind the back and cuff them, whether they have a gun and want to pull it and shoot you in the face or not. Obama should understand that, Holder, and all of them, especially at CNN. But they don't. All right, Katrina joins us in just a second. Let's watch this one.
He did what he was trained to do, and under the fire that he was put under, he did a very good job. And probably saved lives. We think their strategy was to get to the event center, into the event center, and they were not able to get past that outer perimeter that we had set up, which was part of that security.
All right, folks, and he's talking about the heroic officer. Joining us now is Katrina Pierson, spokesperson for the Tea Party Leadership Fund PAC, former Republican congressional candidate from Texas. And Katrina, you were there.
Yes,
I was there. For all the chaos. So first of all, explain how you became aware, what was going on when you became aware of it, of the shooting, the firing going on outside, and how you were informed.
Absolutely. You know, we were at the end of the event, and everyone had spoken. Pamela Giller had spoken. The artist had received his award. And so people were just sort of talking to each other, shaking hands, getting to know each other. The event was supposed to end around 7 p.m., and it ended a little bit early, so people were just mingling. Well, some people had started to filter out, and at the same time, you could hear people in the hallway yell, shots fired, officer down. So I thought it was a radio at first, and then people just started repeating it into the room. And so at that point, people began to go out the room, which is pretty much in front of this building. But before we could even get there, the Garland Police Department acted so rapidly and so efficiently, we couldn't even get to the door by the time the officers had come in. All of the exits, sealed the room, let us know what was going on, and told us to stay put because there was an active shooter outside and they wanted to make sure we were all safe. From that point, it got a little bit interesting because then we started to hear suspect was down, and then we heard the word explosives. And at that point, SWAT just scattered and just lined everybody up and says, we're going to move you further back away from the front of this building, because they weren't quite sure what else was going on outside.
And when were you taken away? And I assume, because I saw pictures of it on TV, and were there 2 buses, school buses, that whisked you people away eventually?
Yes, there were school buses removing us from the auditorium, which is where they were holding us until they could try to secure the perimeter. But it was such a big facility and a big area, and it was getting dark. They weren't confident that the area was secure, so they did relocate us.
Amazing story about the two guards, one who was unarmed and one who was a traffic officer who had a gun and managed to take down 2 suspects who had AK-47s and body armor. I mean, that is amazing. But let me ask you, what was the level of fear, at least within yourself, as this was going on? What was your worst scenario going through your head?
Well, it's interesting because I wasn't afraid, and I thought that was kind of strange. And everybody in the room, I mean, you would expect, being essentially told you're in the middle of a terrorist attack, that people would be panicking and in fear. And in fact, it was exact opposite. There was enough security present, and we felt secure, we felt safe, and nobody was really afraid. It was more of praying for the officer that was hit, praying for the officers keeping us safe, praying for our country even, which is actually what happened inside the auditorium when a woman removed the American flag from her purse. And then it was just, we all became one solid entity through strength, actually. So we weren't afraid. This was us standing up for the rights of the First Amendment, and we all came together and we stood strong in that.
So tell me about the praying. So someone took an American flag out of her purse, and how many of you started praying for the officer around that flag?
This was everyone. Like I said, it was like we were acting as one body. As soon as the woman pulled the flag out of her purse, everyone in the entire auditorium was just singing, "God bless America." After that, it was chanting USA. And then after that, there were prayers offered to the officers who were protecting us, as well as to our country.
Wow.
We weren't going to be afraid in our own backyard, and you never really know what you're going to do when you're in that situation.
Right.
And I can tell you that the folks in Texas were not afraid.
And to hear the media, of course, we remember Charlie Hebdo and the criticism. Oh yeah, there's free speech, but and you're hearing some of the same things here. Everybody has a right to draw the Prophet Muhammad or whatever, but you don't buy the "but" part, do you?
Well, I don't, particularly that this was actually a secondary event. This all started here in Garland on January 17th, when a pro-profit group came in under the guise of Sound Vision, don't even know what that is, but set up this event on school property, actually praising Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. The problem that the citizens here had with that is their keynote speakers included imams that are traveling all over the world with anti-American propaganda, people who had been co-conspirators of previous attacks on U.S. soil. So we took issue with that. So Pamela Geller came to our event when we protested that event and spoke. And so we went to her event, which was in opposition to that event, because the Garland Event Center had to accept both sides of the coin. So what you saw last night was in response to the anti-free speech we saw back in January.
All right. Well, listen, Katrina, appreciate it very much. Glad you're okay, and very fascinating insight, and thank you. We'll speak to you soon.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
All right, Katrina Pierson, folks. All right, coming up next, columnist and Bloomberg View columnist Ramesh Panaru. Don't go away.